Your power is nothing compared to the bonds we've forged.
What's up guys, welcome back to Lucky Crit. We've gotten a lot of Fire Emblem Warriors news and updates since my last episode discussing the game, so let's take a look at what else we now know. Firstly, something that I left out of last video is that a Young Tiki amiibo was announced and showcased a while ago. However, we haven't seen any official in-game footage of her as a playable character yet, but I'd say it's pretty clear that she will indeed be in the game. So there's another new character, and our first Dragonkin character as well. We've also had a few new characters announced, including female Robin, Cordelia, and even more recently, Takumi, Camilla, Hinoka, and Leo.
We'll use all our power to clear the paths before you.
Hinoka's voice doesn't sound very good. They had originally teased that a female rider and a male archer would be revealed this month, and of course many of us correctly assumed exactly who they were talking about, Camilla and Takumi. I would honestly not be surprised if one of the next revealed characters was Tharya or Azura, because they seem like some of the next logical choices if we follow the trend that we've seen so far. All of this though begins to beg the question, is there any chance of a character reveal in this game that will actually be surprising? At this point, the reveal of another Shadow Dragon character probably would be. Heck, even Kata/Sheeta would be surprising. Perhaps if Alm and Celica could be added to the game via their amiibo, that would be interesting as well. But in all likelihood, I think the game will just about entirely consist of Awakening and Fates characters, with characters from other fan-favorite games, perhaps even a fan-favorite Hector, reserved for DLC, which I know won't be pleasing to a lot of fans like they could have, simply by just including some more old-school love within the base game. Female Robin is also confirmed to only be playable outside of story mode, so she may very well be just a reskin of male Robin, but we don't have much footage of him yet to confirm any similarities. And we could potentially see this treatment as well with male Corrin if they've gone that route and will be adding him to the game as well. We've also seen some imagery of Anna from in the game, but thus far it sorta seems like she won't be playable, and she'll be taking on more of a voiceover/NPC role, exclaiming, "I like those profit margins," after the player defeats certain numbers of enemies. So far, the confirmed cast of Fire Emblem Warriors includes new characters Rowan and Lianna, alongside Chrom, Marth, Corrin, Ryoma, Xander, Lissa, Frederick, Robin, Lucina, Tiki, Cordelia, female Robin, Hinoka, Camilla, Takumi, and Leo. In total, we've now got 19 revealed characters. Honestly, I think we'd be very lucky to see 40 characters in the game, so my assumption is that we'll see somewhere around 30 to 35 characters in the base game at launch. This means that we've already got over half, or about half of the cast revealed. I'd love to know how you feel about the cast that's been revealed so far in the comment section below. We've also finally got confirmation that the game will feature the Fire Emblem series standard play modes, Casual and Classic. In Classic, fallen characters will not be able to be redeployed, mimicking permanent death in the main series games, while this restriction is removed in Casual. The developers had teased permanent death earlier on, so we had an inkling that this was coming, but it's nice to finally know for sure. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if too many characters are lost throughout the game. Would you be restricted to playing only as characters that get a game over when they die, like presumably Rowan and Lianna? Would you have to complete the story objectives by only swapping between the two of them? We'll have to wait and see. A recent Famitsu article also confirmed that there will be no weapon type switching in Warriors, something that we had been wondering since some characters have access to multiple types of weapons in the main series games, and characters could also use different weapons in Hyrule Warriors, the last crossover title. So characters will indeed remain locked to their default weapon type in Warriors. However, this isn't exactly surprising, as it seems that Fire Emblem Warriors will be more akin to a Samurai Warriors game than it will be to a Dynasty Warriors game, where in Dynasty Warriors games there isn't much difference between characters besides their weapon of choice and super attacks, since most of the characters can wield most weapons. Samurai Warriors tends to have bigger differences between the characters, with each having a more fleshed out moveset and a single weapon, with the overall roster of characters being smaller. We also saw this in Hyrule Warriors, where a lot of the characters were very quirky and unique in their playstyles and weaponry. Since we knew we'd be seeing a varied amount of Fire Emblem classes in Warriors, including infantry, flying units, archers, and mages, it was pretty likely that it was going to be more like the Samurai Warriors games in terms of character weapon and roster limitations. There was also a screenshot released that showcases the convoy in Warriors, and it looks like there's no tab for daggers or shuriken type weapons, so it's entirely possible that we won't be seeing any characters who wield these. Units like Kagero, Saizo, Kaze, and Felicia are likely out, unless this is just a screenshot from earlier on in development, but everything seems to fit the screen pretty perfectly with the number of tabs they have, so honestly I'm doubtful we'll see anyone with these weapons in the game. We've also got a screenshot of Rowan attacking what looks to be a strange monster with long claws, so clearly the enemies in the game will at least be more diverse than the standard enemy soldiers at one point or another. We could have assumed this, since it seems like the final boss, or the main antagonist, seems to be another evil dragon and would probably have some different enemy types as a part of its army, but it's cool to see something different than the enemies we've gotten so far. In a recent Famitsu, bond levels were also discussed a bit further. When characters fight with each other long enough, their bonds will increase. These bonds will be indicated by hearts, and when the two characters have enough points, they'll be able to do a singular bond conversation. Not too much of a surprise, since this is pretty much exactly how supports work in any Fire Emblem main series title, but it's interesting to imagine hearts appearing between characters within the menus of a Warriors game, and the private quarters from Fates hilariously comes to mind. As for what we mentioned last time about Rowan and Lianna both using swords, and the controversy surrounding that, we've also got a response from one of the developers in an interview with Nintendo Dream. On the subject of the weapon types of the twins, and the reason why the swords were chosen, developer Hiroya Usuda stated, "Because there are many sword characters, there were talks during development to give an axe to the boy, Rowan, and a spear to the girl, Lianna. As a side note, this is exactly what I wanted them to do, which I mentioned in the last video. However, the twins are lords, and while we were designing the game prologue, we wanted those who don't really play action games to be able to properly play it too, so we wanted to create the right kind of tutorial. In this case, the enemy positions and gameplay experience would change, and it wouldn't feel right if they would change based on the protagonist's weapons. We wanted people to understand the weapon triangle starting from the sword. We want people who don't even know about Fire Emblem to be able to grasp the rules, so we made the tutorial the same regardless of the choices for the two." This is rather silly. A simple tutorial could have taken place featuring any starting weapon, where the player must face off against enemies with the other weapon types. Then the player could gauge their weapon's effectiveness against the different enemy weapon types. In fact, it would have been an even better tutorial if the main character duo had two different weapons, since that could even further explain the advantages and disadvantages by having the player use different weapons themselves. And besides, how hard would it have been to just alter a few enemy types or enemy weapons depending on which character or which weapon you use in the tutorial? That sounds easy to me. Or if they really wanted swords to begin with, they could have just put Chrom in the tutorial. That's really not a far stretch considering it's he who finds Rowan and Lianna early on in the game. He could have just had a mission with him and the shepherds doing their thing before the twins showed up in their world. I also think it's a little silly to assume that most people wouldn't understand a rock, paper, scissors type system. Yes, when first adjusting they'll need to remember which of these weapons beats the others, but forcing them to start with swords isn't really necessary. I also think a lot of fans would have been fine just sticking with Alphonse and Shurina from Heroes as the two main character siblings in the game. While Heroes and Warriors were in development at the same time, and they wanted to differentiate the main characters from each other in the two games, and also they'd have no idea what the fan reception of Alphonse and Shurina would be like at that point in time, it would have been, at the very least, a bit more dynamic with the weapon types, and I think a lot of people wouldn't really mind these two becoming series staple characters. I also think Rowan and Lianna will go over a lot worse than Alphonse and Shurina in the long term, and they'll probably be quick to be forgotten, but I hope I'm proven wrong. We've also learned that there's going to be a limited edition on the Nintendo Switch releasing in Europe on October 20th, and the unveiled Japanese release date for Warriors is September 28th, so it seems like the game itself is a lot closer to releasing than we previously thought. Warriors is shaping up to be quite divisive in the community. In a time where Fire Emblem has finally broken into the mainstream, having its very own Nintendo Direct, successful mobile game that's done even better than Mario's own mobile game, let's not forget that, and is getting an intense amount of love considering all the games in development that we know of. A time where everyone should come together and share their love for the franchise as a whole, and share the excitement of knowing that more games are on the horizon. But still, fans are divided. And honestly, I can't blame them. I can't help but feel like the developers should have known better if even they were fighting over the character roster. Excuses like wanting the rock, paper, scissors concept to be easily explained at the beginning of the game with swords, and making the two lords use the same weapon just for the sake of simplicity to help new players, are just kind of weak and flimsy. We can't have the best games in the franchise, the best new Fire Emblem titles ever seen, or even just have new games live up to their full potential if developers continue to make excuses or not go the extra mile to knock them out of the park. Fire Emblem Awakening saved the franchise, and while even that game was a little divisive amongst fans, at the very least no one argued about whether or not Chrom, Lissa, Frederick, and Robin all needed to use swords for the sake of explaining the weapon triangle in the first mission. I would also argue that Awakening brought in the most new fans out of any of the games, and these new players seem to have adjusted just fine without the extra hand-holding. Ultimately, I want this game to succeed, and I sure hope it does, but I can't help but feel that the opportunity to create an even more amazing game out of Warriors, or at least one that would have pleased both sides of the community in terms of its choices and character inclusions, was squandered, and that's just really sad. I really do hope that I'm proven wrong when the game launches, though. That's going to wrap up today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to slash the thumbs up down below, comment Warriors if you're excited, and get subscribed if you haven't yet to make sure you don't miss a video. And a special thank you to our new patrons that recently joined us as well. Also follow us on Twitter at Lucky Crit Gaming for any news and updates revealed on the fly. And I'll see you all next time.